I wish. reportable action.
Okay, no formal action. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Sandu,
Yeah.
Councilmember Campion,
Here.
Councilmember Lozano,
Here.
Mayor Lamson.
Here. All right, we'll please rise for the silent prayer and the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you please replay the statement?
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Friday, September 20th at 9 a.m. and Saturday, September 21st at 9 a.m. The City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website, and a DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
All right, thank you, Tina. Council, are there any agenda approval, additions, and/or deletions? All right. Presentation, oath of office, Police Officer Jared Spinelli. This is a huge crowd to watch you get sworn in here.
Mayor and City Council members, it's my great honor to introduce our newest police officer, Kate. He's standing like that because he's proudly Air Force trained. Didn't show any bias on my part on whether we hired him or not because he's from the Air Force. But so this is the first time in all my years in law enforcement that I actually got a phone call from the academy staff, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, and they said, "Hey, we got a guy. We got a guy that he just wants to come work in Galt. We're offering him a job. He wants to come work for Galt. So you need to take a look at him and give him some special attention." So Jared and I met, we talked, and he thoroughly impressed me with his enthusiasm for wanting to come work in this city of ours, the city of Galt. So he grew up in Sacramento, and he graduated from Rio American High School in 2011, and he went to college for a little bit, and then he went into the United States Air Force and spent 6 years in Civil Engineering Squadron. And he had 2 deployments, one to Kuwait, and the other one is Qatar. And he's still in the Air Force Reserves. He's married to Milani. And I had the pleasure of meeting his family, his full and extended family, who are here today at yesterday's graduation, where he graduated from Sacramento Sheriff's Academy. He did us all proud, his professionalism and everything. And so we are truly blessed to have him come work for us at the place that he wanted to come work. He could have went to the Sheriff's Department, but he decided to come here. So I appreciate that. He's going to get sworn in today by our new city clerk, Tina Hubert. And so a little bit about him, too, is in case you guys have any of the same interests, he loves skiing, backpacking, and working out. And he has a couple of dogs. So you can tell us all about that, too. But hey, listen, I'm just really, really proud of the fact that you chose to come work here. We have an amazing family here in Galt PD. This community loves our police department, and we love the community. It shows in everything that we do every single day. So welcome aboard. You're going to get sworn in, and after, I'm sure you want to say a few words to your new family. So.
I, and state your name,
I, Jared Spinelli,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and during such time
and during such time
as I am an employee
as I am an employee
of the City of Galt,
of the City of Galt,
I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the position of police officer
as the position of police officer
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
You can go over to the microphone. Go over to the microphone.
Come sign the library first.
Oh, he has to sign.
Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to become a police officer in the City of Galt. I look forward to meeting every single one of you as often as I can. I just want to say thank you to my mom, dad, wife, and sister for supporting me in my career decisions, not only with the military, but transitioning into a law enforcement family. I look forward to getting out and starting the job. Thank you.
Very nice. Well, congratulations and welcome. And if any of the public in here would like to get a ticket to the Red, White, and Barbecue, this Saturday we have 2 canine officers walking out that have tickets. You can stop them. All right, public comment?
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the City Council on non-agenda items. The public comment section is for the City Council to receive comments. Except for brief responses to questions, no discussion or action may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Speaker cards are located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers. Once completed, forward the speaker card to the clerk. Those persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so at the time that item is being considered.
Thank you. First up, we have Barbara Payne with the Community of Character Coalition.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here once again to recognize one of our citizens for their exceptional pride in our community. I would like to ask Michelle Bustamante to come forward, please. And she didn't know this, but Aaron Saldivar nominated her, and it would be wonderful if you would come and read your thoughts about our wonderful Michelle. Can you read it okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Can everybody see her? Yes. Michelle is an all-around exceptional woman. She is kind, patient, loving, caring, and always willing to lend a hand. She works hard every day to build up our town. She is a staff member at Real Life Church, where she has attended for many years. She serves in their children's ministry as church administrator and finance director, but that's not all. Michelle regularly helps out at National Night Out and helps organize the food pantry at RLC and their annual Back to School Bash, where they hand out school supplies, haircuts, face painting, and more to nearly 500 children. She makes people feel welcomed and loved before she even knows them. If you saw Michelle out in public and struck up a conversation with her, you would without a doubt walk away feeling brighter inside. My favorite thing about Michelle, though, is how humble she is. She donates so much time into our community and never brags or boasts. She just loves our community. Every little detail means something to her. She is a great friend, an awesome listener, very down to earth, non-judgmental, as well as a wonderful mother of 2 very sweet boys. I think anyone who knows her would agree people like Michelle make our town a better place. She isn't only great to those in and around her church, she is great to everyone. So thank you to Michelle for being a bright, loving person who takes such great pride in our community.
And the Galt Committee of Character Coalition, some of our members are here, and I would love it if you would come up and meet Michelle, who we are honoring this evening.
Thank you. Bonnie, do you want a picture? Or do you want to have them come out for a picture? What do you want? Can you guys, Michelle, can you guys come out? Aaron, come back. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think they would have fit back over there. If I move it just one, it won't be in it. I'm trying to duck.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to take the time to recognize one of our special citizens.
Thank you, Community Character Coalition. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to bring something positive to our community and our council meetings. It just means so much to honor people that wouldn't always be honored.
Thank you.
All right, don't sit down. Next up, we have Gail Weber, who'd like to speak about the Beautification Committee. Would you like to keep it? Yeah, I'll just throw them on here. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Cleared half the room out. Good evening, Mayor Lamson and Council. My name is Gail Weber. I'm here for the Galt Beautification Committee. And I'm here tonight to ask if we could gain control of our social media back. When we had control of our social media before, we could easily get like 30 people or so for the Galt Community Cleanup Days. And since we've lost the ability to post on our social media, we've kind of lost touch with the community. Now, the members of the committee, you guys appointed us, you trusted us and empowered us to run these committees. I would think that you could trust and empower us to run the social media. We would like the ability to post our cleanup days when they're happening, post pictures while they're happening. We also do presentations for Home of the Month and Business of the Month. And sometimes those presentations, the pictures and stuff that come along with it, don't hit the paper for like a couple of weeks. So we're losing touch with the community. So we are asking if we could gain access back to our Facebook page, Instagram and Snapchat, and so that we can, like I said, again, reach out to the community, engage with the community, especially with the cleanup days, but with the Galt Beautification Committee and all. And I know that the Youth Commission lost their ability to post also, so hopefully we can, all the committees can get back their access. So I'm just asking the City Council to reconsider giving us access to our Facebook pages again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. That's actually been on my radar, and I was going to have a discussion with the city manager, and so we'll get together and see what we can do. Okay? All right, next up, we don't know what the subject is, so it's not on the agenda. Jean Davenport? Dun, 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 dun.
There he is.
I'm Gene Davenport. I live in the city of Galt. I'm still just bothered by the rezoning that you guys do and the way it goes about public notification and what's going on. And, we have a general plan. Because developers come in and promise you the moon and say, we're going to make it better, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, build these houses, that are really not going to add to the general fund, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be shortchanged on the services they get, and they're going to have to pay more for the services they receive because the city doesn't seem to be able to get itself in order budget-wise. On the corner of Carillion and Walnut, 61 homes, whatever. I mean, you go to a Guthridge lot that he built right off the frontage road. It's the same size, basically. There's about 24, 25 houses in there. You're putting 61 over there. So what you're doing is you're taking away the amenities of kids being able to interact in their own neighborhoods because it's just going to be too small for them to do anything. And the city is going to be raising park and rec fees, and at that point, some families are not going to be able to afford to do anything with park and rec because they won't be able to afford it. Right now, my granddaughter pays close to $100 for each gymnastic and softball. The fees are going to go up substantially to a point, and maybe they're going to be paying up to $400 a year now. It's not that we can't afford it. It's just disingenuous to what you're supposed to be doing for the rest of us that live in this city. We have a general plan. Why don't you make developers come in and stick to our general plan? We have an idea of what we want in this city. And we're not going to achieve that if you keep putting houses on places that are supposed to be developed for businesses or for other businesses. Basically, that's what it is. So, I mean, you have one shopping center, and I know the city's been approached, and I know they've talked to you guys about building homes on that big lot on Carillion. It's just, it's unfeasible that you would even consider that. But they come in and they sweet talk you, and you guys are behind the 8 ball when it comes to budgetary stuff. So you guys react, I think, poorly. There should be no houses on that corner. If you want to put something there, make the developers come in, or wait. Look, it's been vacant for 30 years. It's not going to hurt to keep it vacant for 30 more. I guess not. And if the other one is vacant for 25 years, leave it vacant. Don't put homes on it just because the developer wants to put it on there. You guys have, I know it's difficult. I can sit over here and get on you guys, which I do, regularly, because it's easy for me to sit here and say these things. But it's easy for me to tell you I'm affected by these things that you guys are doing. The general plan was put in place. I'll get it. After a long thought out process, there's a lot of involvement with city staff and people within the community. So I just think you need to stop and no more houses in the center of town. If you want to extend the city limits like you did for Elliott on the going out towards Liberty Ranch, fine, do it. Don't take away what we have in the middle, what we have planned for. Let's start making Galt better. We're in a position. And how we got there really doesn't matter at this moment. What matters most to me, and I think I'm most bothered by, it's hard to get any information about what I want to talk about when I want to come here. And it's just, you can go on the city website, you can click all over the place. I clicked for 30 minutes, I came in, and I asked Tina, and I got the answer within 3 minutes. It's cumbersome, and it's bothersome for people to have to keep doing this. And I'm asking you right now tonight, be Galt citizens. Do not expand home building in the center of our town. Take it to the outside if you want to build it. I mean, and you guys have been in talks with the developers. So keep that in mind when you do things. I'm going to go to the planning commission meeting because they're the ones that kind of approved it in the first place. And they went by, and you can go read the planning commission meeting notes. There's nothing on there about it. I can't find crap. Squat, excuse me. But the fact of the matter is, just leave that center lot alone. Start doing what we need to do. Tell staff to go out and do what you want. Don't let staff come to you and say, this is what we can do. Tell staff, this is what we want. Go find it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Davenport. Next up is Kathleen Amos on the Winter Bird Festival.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Kathleen Amos. I'm a resident of Galt for the past 34 years. I'm here tonight to talk about A couple of things. I was on the Parks and Rec Commission in 2006 to 2008. One of the things I learned during that time was that in order to keep your community safe, there's two things you need to do. One of them is keep your people busy with family activities in your community, and the other is to have good police coverage. And regarding the Winter Bird Festival, which I'm one of the founding members of the Winter Bird Festival. We are coming up on, I think it's our 13th, on February 1st of 2020. One of my concerns is that, the Winter Bird Festival has put Galt on the map with its unique identity, and I'm really excited to see that, we are using the cranes in our community decorations that have occurred, like over on the roundabout, and also I saw it on the bus that goes to Sacramento back and forth, the commuter bus. But one of my concerns is that this last weekend, one of the ways that we've always promoted the Winter Bird Festival is that we make little save the date cards, and we have those at the Crane Festival in Lodi, because the Lodi Festival every year at the beginning of November is to celebrate the arrival of the cranes, and then the Winter Bird Festival in Galt celebrates the fact that they're leaving to go back up north and do their annual migration. So my concern is that none of those save the date cards got delivered to the Crane Festival in Lodi over the weekend. I sent an email and received a short supply and I had, what mostly upset me the most about it is the fact that I called ahead and offered to take them myself, and I was told not to worry, they would be ready and they would be delivered by someone who was on staff. However, when I got there over the weekend, they were not there. No one had seen them. No one knew anything about that. So I sent an email and received a short supply that, yes, we are aware that they were not delivered, but nothing about, gee, I'm sorry I didn't let you know so you could do something and deliver it or make sure that we got something there. I would have done something myself if I had known they were not going to be taken care of. So, and we haven't had a meeting for a while. We normally have meetings about once a month for the 6 months prior to the festival. So anyway, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about that lack of follow-through because there are serious birders who come to the Crane Festival and they come to our festival too. But if people don't know the date and it's not on their calendar, they don't know to get it on their calendar, then we will lose people in the springtime. So I'm very disappointed that we lost that opportunity this last weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amos. Okay. With that, we move on to reports by city council members on regional boards, commissions, and committees. Vice Mayor Farmer?
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Sandu?
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Campion? Councilmember Lozano?
Yeah, just a couple of things real briefly. We had our SACOG meeting on Thursday, the 31st. We discussed, again, the regional housing needs assessment, and I appreciate Mr. Arias for sitting down with me early last week to help kind of bring me up to speed on additional information as it relates to Galt. And so it was really nice to go in and look at it through a different lens. So I appreciate you doing that. Also, we talked about several items. One is the MTP SCS, which is the plan moving forward for regional transportation issues here in the region. And it looks like SACOG is going to be taking that matter up November 18th, which is ahead of schedule. February was supposed to be the time. The reason it was brought ahead of time was the federal government is enacting a new rule, I guess, and taking away California's exemption to have cleaner air. And so if this plan is not put in place prior to the 26th of November, then the plan is for naught. And that's been a plan that's been worked on for about 2 years. So that's kind of the latest and greatest on that. We're excited to move forward and get that put into place and start to see some funding come down our way. We also had SACOG, we had our unmet transportation needs hearing that I chaired here in the council chambers on the 30th. We had about 4 speakers, and that information about different needs from the community will go to SACOG, and we'll flesh it out and see what we can do about providing some additional services down here related to transportation, not only from the seniors, but also the youth. And so we'll work on that. And then lastly, one of the things I wanted to talk kind of in the public session about was we had Mayor Jody Jones from Paradise speak about the campfire that occurred a year ago tomorrow, I think, maybe I think it was November 8th. But anyway, so she came and talked about the issues that they ran into in terms of emergency response and evacuation and things like that. And so I just wanted to kind of put that on the forefront. Maybe after the first of the year, we can bring that back to council about what our plans are moving forward and see what we need to do to sharpen our pencils in the event we have an emergency here. The interesting thing is they did have a plan because they had an initial issue in 2008, and they had practiced their plan and their evacuation, but the campfire was such that it just really overwhelmed the systems and their plan. So they've since put other things into place to help with the evacuation should that become an issue, and they've learned a lot from it. So look forward to that discussion maybe after the first of the year once we get the holidays behind us. Maybe have the chief talk about that at some point. So. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. I attended my air quality board meeting, and one of the things that the staff have been working on is they're underfunded, and they've got different ways to have funding. And they met with all the city managers in the district and talked about a per capita fee, and they were recommending a per capita fee per person, which could be up to $1.50 per person for the cities and the counties. And right now, the city of Galt can't afford that, and the Sacramento County, Don Natoli, they're very concerned because they're underfunded in the prison systems and just way under the water in there. They can't afford the thousands it would cost them, so that did not go through, hasn't not gone through, but they're looking for some alternatives, so I was very happy with that at the meeting. And then we had our youth commission meeting last night, and we were able to thank them for their service, and Breathe California came and made a presentation to the Youth Commission and talking to them about secondhand smoke and smoking in apartments and things like that. So there's some interesting stuff. The Youth Commission is going to come out with some support on that. And that's about all I have on that. Okay. So information consent calendar. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes as submitted, receive and file warrants for the period ending October 23rd, 2019. Number 3, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 3-year agreement with the County of Sacramento for hazardous materials response teams for proper management of emergency incidents through June 2021 for a total of $41,055.16, with an option for the city manager to agree to up to 2 one-year renewals with 3% annual increases.
Mayor, before we make a motion, can I do some clarification from the staff on the J2?
I gave opportunities to pull something. Is that?
Is okay or
allowed?
I have to pull? Or,
Okay.
on page 3, the check number 21662, and page 4, the check number 211741 to El Grove Auto Group. Can you just the brief explanation of these 2 checks?
Sure. Last year, council approved the purchase of 9 vehicles. 6 of them are for patrol. So this is part of the patrol, correct? Yes.
Correct.
So it takes a while for these to be built and equipped. And so these are just coming.
So
to
this 6 vehicle with the police department, right?
How many vehicles
No,
is
that's,
this?
so there's 2 different warrant numbers there. One is for 3 marked black and white vehicles, and the other one is for 2. And so they bill us as they get delivered. We're still waiting for 1 more.
All right, thank you. Just need a clarification.
Was there another? I thought there were 3. That's it?
No, that's only 2.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve all those?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Farmer, second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Campion. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Sandu,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano,
Aye.
Mayor Lamson.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Move on to scheduled matters, notice of public hearing, subject 500 Fairway Drive electronic billboard project. Mr. Arias. Oh, you only have 5 minutes.
Actually, I think I'm going to double that easily. While that's waiting to come up, good evening, Mayor and Council. Chris Arias, Community Development Director. The item that you have before you is the 500 Fairway Drive electronic billboard project. This project has a long history, but it really started when we received a billboard sign assessment in mid-2018. Staff had hired Terra Realty Advisors, or TRA, to evaluate sites along Highway 99 to see if any were viable for placement for an electronic billboard. So they looked at Twin Cities in 99, right along adjacent to the freeway, obviously. Then they looked at a site adjacent to Galt High School, and then obviously 500 Fairway Drive. And then based on that assessment, 500 Fairway Drive proved to be a great alternative or a great site for placement of an electronic billboard. And so based on that billboard sign assessment, Council in June of 2018 gave us authority to go out with a request for proposals to sign companies to see if there was interest in building and maintaining an electronic billboard at the site. So we issued that in December. We received responses to it in January of 2019. And then in February, we selected Clear Channel Outdoor to place the sign. And this was a very competitive process. We chose Clear Channel Outdoor based on the superior value of the contract. So I have the basic terms shown on the screen. And Clear Channel was the only one that offered kind of a different alternative. Mesa Outdoor and Veal Outdoor basically offered an annual lease rate or 20% of gross revenue, whichever is greater. Obviously, they had a little bit of difference in the annual lease rate. Clear Channel offered an option. We can go with a flat annual rate of $108,000 per year, or we can choose the $72,000 annual lease rate or 25% of gross revenue, whichever is greater. Clear Channel also offered a better reimbursement package. So Clear Channel was the superior offer. So once we selected Clear Channel, we started working with them on the lease. And I have listed the basic terms on the screen. The lease is part of the staff report package. The term of the lease is 15 years with a tenant option for an additional 10. Clear Channel is responsible for the construction and maintenance of the sign. There is no further investment in this project by the city. The rate, now this is a little bit different than what was shown. We did negotiate with Clear Channel, and rather than go with the $72,000 minimum annual guarantee or 25% gross revenue, we negotiated to $100,000 minimum annual guarantee or 23% of gross annual revenue, whichever is greater. So Clear Channel was great to work with in this regard. And again, the reimbursements, $25,000 paid within 7 days of lease execution, and then $20,000 paid after local permits are received. We also are allowed emergency notifications on the sign without offsets like Amber Alerts, and the city receives exclusive use of 5% of the total advertising time on the sign. And another benefit is that Galt Chamber of Commerce members will receive a 10% discount to advertise on the sign. The real meat of the project, obviously, is the installation of the sign. It will be placed, obviously, at 500 Fairway Drive in an existing landscape median. There will be the loss of some shrubbery that's in that median. One coastal redwood tree that's a little bit further south on the site will be removed. and that's the only landscaping that would be affected. The sign is 65 feet tall. It has 2 sign faces, each at 672 square feet. The display face is configured into a V angle, and the reason for that is obviously to have better visibility on the freeway, but what I like about it is it also directs light away from the residences, specifically those along Melody to the southwest. And then it's also, the sign is placed 200 feet from the nearest residence. There'll be decorative column cladding on the sign, so basically we'll hide the pole that supports the sign. And then the sign will contain a Galt Market logo or City of Galt logo. And that's the artist rendering of the sign. You can see there is no pole. It's covered with that decorative box. Then we have the Galt logo, and you can see that V angle. This slide shows the north face or southbound traffic, and what I like about this visual is you can see where the sign is proposed to go, and it's essentially going to go in the place of the existing market sign that's on the site. There used to be a static billboard on this site just a little bit beyond where the proposed sign will be. What I also like about this photo is you could see the spacing between it and also the existing signs along Fairway Drive. So with this view, you can clearly see the Burger King sign and then the Giddens Brothers thermostat a little bit further south. And I should note that both those signs, the Burger King and Giddens Brothers, are 50 feet tall. This is the south face or the northbound view. Again, just like the southbound view, great visibility. And here, again, you can see the spacing between the signs along the freeway. Here you can see the Les Schwab sign a little bit further north. And then as you go even further north, you've got McDonald's, Chevron, and then beyond it, Galt Plaza sign. And Chevron, McDonald's, and Galt Plaza are all 100 feet tall. And again, the sign is proposed at 65 feet tall. The Galt Municipal Code, or GMC, does require that the Planning Commission and City Council make findings for approval. The findings for approval typically center around consistency with the general plan and also the zoning code. And general plan consistency mostly centers on the fact that the general plan does require us to look for additional revenue sources for the Galt market. And 500 Fairway Drive is part of the Galt market. It's the parking lot for the Galt market. And so by deed restriction, we are required to provide all funding from the sign to Parks and Recreation. So it provides the general plan consistency in that manner. The zoning consistency I've shown on the screen, we do provide development criteria for electronic billboards, and the proposed sign meets all that. So the maximum height for our code is 65 feet. The sign meets that. We allow 2 sign faces at 672 square feet. It meets that. The sign exceeds the minimum clearance of 45 feet, which is good because it doesn't provide any visual obstruction underneath the sign. Then we do require 200 feet from the nearest residence, and they're meeting that. Caltrans requires permits for electronic billboards along freeways, and they have a 100-foot separation. We bump that up to 200 feet to provide greater separation. And the project is required to provide all utilities underground, and then it is located in 500 Fairway Drive is a highway commercial zone, which is a Galt zoning code requirement. A typical consistency finding of all planning projects is to make sure that whatever you're building is compatible with what is nearby. And in this case, the sign, is commercial in nature, so it certainly is compatible with the commercial uses on Fairway Drive. Burger King is directly south and Les Schwab directly north. So the commercial nature of each all work together. And then the structure is certainly compatible with the nearby other structures. As noted, we have 50-foot signs to the south and then 100-foot signs to the north. So this sign is compatible with those. We had presented this project in back-to-back meetings to the Parks and Rec Commission and also the Planning Commission. Both voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council approve the project. It should be noted, though, there were 2 absent from Parks and Rec Commission, so it was a 3-0 vote. The Planning Commission hearing, it was a public hearing, and there was a little bit more debate at the Planning Commission meeting. And I've listed the 3 items that were discussed. The first one was the potential impact of the sign to local businesses. Second was the potential of light and glare to nearby residences. And then the third is to make sure that the revenue generated stays in the Parks and Rec budget. So the last one was pretty simple because, I mean, we've talked about that, and based on the deed restrictions of the property, we're required to put the funding or direct it into the Parks and Rec budget. I'm going to talk about the next 2 on the next couple slides. So the first one is there was a couple business members that attended the Planning Commission meeting, and they had indicated they felt that the sign would hurt their businesses. This issue came up about a year ago, and when they first stated that, they stated that the sign would block the view of their signs. And, you know, based on the angle of the freeway and the spacing, and you can see from the photo that that's not true, that there's no way that the sign blocks the visibility of their signs. So when this issue was also brought up a year ago, staff researched the item to see if there's potential that does a billboard, if built near existing businesses, does it impact those local businesses? And we could not find any data to support that. And anecdotally, we just felt that, you know, the sign, if anything, could help because it does attract your eyes to that side of the freeway and maybe can bring additional attention to their businesses. So, you know, we didn't find merit in their claim, and again, we just could not find data to support it. And not to dismiss their concerns, there's nothing out there to show that that's true. And if it were true, you wouldn't expect to see billboards around any other commercial businesses along freeways. You would expect to see them in open areas by themselves. And then in a place like that, I wouldn't recommend putting them. I would recommend them putting them in commercial centers. So then the other issue, which is, in our view, probably the biggest concern we had going into this project, was the potential of light and glare to people who live nearby. So the first thing we liked was, again, the angle of the sign, and then the aerial on the left, you can see the 200-foot separation to the home along Melody. And based on the angle of the sign and the separation, we feel that the light would be minimal to non-existent. There was another issue brought up at Planning Commission about the homes on the other side of the freeway. And there are some there, but they're beyond really the measurable distance. So the nearest homes are up in that Franston area, closer to the Central Galt interchange, and you can see they're over 700 feet away, and then they're buffered by the freeway and other commercial uses. So we just don't see the possibility of light and glare there. And then the senior development that's under construction is, again, beyond the measurable distance, and then buffered by industrial and commercial property in the freeway. So I don't see the sign providing the light and glare. It also should be noted that the sign, and it's actually in the contract, cannot exceed 0.3 foot candles at 250 feet. And to give you an idea what a foot candle is the measure of light put out by one candle at 1 foot. So 0.3 of a foot candle at 250 feet, that's not a lot of light. It's pretty low level. And the contract even allows us to measure that if there's concerns from people who live nearby. So we feel that with the contract language, with how we have it built, that we think we're okay in that regard. We did prepare and complete California Environmental Quality Act initial study, negative declaration. It was found that the project would have a less than a significant impact without mitigation. We circulated the document for public review from September 6th through October 7th, and we received 2 comments. One was from the Wilton Rancheria tribe. They had requested us to mitigate the project to include language that construction would stop if we were to find any cultural resources. And we didn't want to reopen the document and put mitigation in, but we will condition the building permit to stop if any cultural resources are found. But in our view, it's highly unlikely that we would find cultural resources. The site has been highly developed. It's adjacent to the old freeway, and even in its current form of a parking lot, it's been graded and trenched, so the likelihood is not great. And then we did receive a comment letter from Caltrans that was general in nature and reminded us that we needed a permit for the sign. So the next steps in the process, if approved tonight, Clear Channel will submit for Caltrans sign permit and City of Galt permit. And if we could get them through the process timely, we could start construction in December. I'm told it's a 2-week construction process. So if true, we can get this billboard up and running in January of next year. So that concludes our presentation. We're asking council tonight to open the public hearing, and upon closing the public hearing, adopting the resolution approving the 500 Fairway Drive electronic billboard project initial study negative declaration, and also approving the agreement between the City of Galt and Clear Channel Outdoor for the installation and operation of the electronic billboard. Eric Neese with Clear Channel and Scott Sheldon with TRA, and then staff will be available to answer any questions you have following this presentation.
So to open the public hearing?
You have questions after?
Well, okay.
Council questions before public hearing? Okay. Actually, Chris, if you could stay up, I have several questions. And I apologize in advance for not bringing these to your attention. These are things I probably could have asked you, but I've been very busy, and so I didn't have a chance. I just had some questions about the contract. First of all, in Section 2, there's some mention, well, first of all, I'll talk about the terms. So what concerned me in the beginning was the fact that we have a 15-year term with an automatic 10-year extension at the tenants. So basically, that means that the tenant can decide we want another 10 years and they get it. We can't deny them that, right?
Not uncommon.
Right. That's true. I have a friend who works for CBS Outdoor. I did some checking around and did some research on my own, which I usually do, and I know that that's common. But I was a little concerned because we're coming off of a garbage contract that had an automatic extension that was obviously overlooked, and so when that really jumped out at me, so I was a little leery of that, so I just wanted to make that point that I saw that and was concerned. But I did find out it was common. 20-year was, I told, was kind of the average.
And the reason for that, not to interrupt you, is the sign companies put in significant investment into the sign. So they have to make sure that they recoup their cost for that. So that's typically why you'll see that. And, you know, and to remind you again, that there's no further investment from the city in this project.
So, and some of these questions, if you can answer, if someone from Clear Channel, I'd be happy to. Also, the same section, last sentence, it says that if a government or quasi-governmental entity acquires the property, then the lease shall automatically be extended to the date, which is 30 years from the closing date of said acquisition. Can you explain what that means to me? The last sentence in section 2.
Yeah, I got it. You know, I think I'm going to ask the city attorney for help on that one. You know, it seems, you know, on the face of it, it would just seem if, for some reason, if the property were to change hands to some other government agency, that there's some protection for the...
I mean, it reads to me that if quasi-government or governmental acquires a property, that it automatically defaults to 30-year.
Right.
Which would exceed the 15 plus 10.
By 5
I just
years.
want to know what that means.
Why it exceeds it by 5 years, the term, I can't say. And, you know, Eric, I don't know if, or Scott, if you have an answer why there's an additional 5 years to that, I can't answer.
Yeah, hi, Council. Eric Neese with Clear Channel. The reason that's in there is because of eminent domain. It calculates if the land is taken, then it helps Caltrans or the whatever municipality is doing it, calculate a way for us to transfer out of it. And so it's a calculation for if there's a condemnation process. That's all that is. It doesn't mean that the lease extends for another 30 years on that location. It's just for us, it's on the transfer out.
Okay.
Of the property.
Like when they force people out and buy their houses, they have
Yes.
to buy out the lease.
That's
of
the trigger for
time.
us, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know if maybe you want to, maybe these questions, it could help. Maybe you want to stick around for a second. I have a few. So, another one that concerned me was Section 11, where it talks about reduced rent concerning unforeseen things that are not caused by the landlord. Essentially, what I read it as is, I know we're going through this thing with PG&E right now where they're turning power off, and although SMUD hasn't started doing that in our area, they did in Harold and Wilton, but should that happen, what this clause seems to mention is that if SMUD was to turn the power off in Galt for, say, 6 hours, that Clear Channel is going to be entitled to a rent reduction for that time period. Is that correct?
On the strictest understanding of that, that would be the case, but that is not something we've ever done or I would probably ever do. This is more for a tree grew up in front of it and we need to get it taken down because we can't see it, or someone ran into the sign and it fell over, or whatever to that effect. That doesn't happen, but something to that effect, that if there's an obstruction or something like
Just
that.
trying to get some clarification, because probably not likely, but not impossible. And then lastly, regarding the contract, last question regarding the contract itself, is something that kind of jumped out at me was that at this tenant's sole and reasonable opinion, there's many things mentioned in this that are at the discretion of the tenant, and one of them is if the structure's value for advertising purposes is diminished. Or letter G, is the tenant unable to obtain or maintain any necessary. So basically, what this part reads to me, it sounds like if you guys at your discretion decide that the value of that billboard is diminished, so you could say, well, it's just not a great spot anymore to advertise. So because of that, we have an out in the contract. Am I understanding that correctly?
That would be the case, yes.
Okay.
But for that, yeah.
Okay. Because what I'm concerned, I think that's all the questions I have for you, sir. So Chris, my only concern is that, look, I agree it's a great contract. Initially I voted against it early only because I felt like the public input or the outreach was poor, and so just from the principle I voted no. But I obviously support something that helps Parks and Recreation. However, I did check in. It's a great contract. It came in far above the other companies, which is great, but it also concerns me because I wonder if they're going to be able to maintain, at any time, they're saying, hey, we just can't get enough advertising to maintain this $100,000, so we're going to have to renegotiate this. I mean, is Clear Channel going to come to us in a couple of years and be like, hey, we're going to have to knock down this number. We can't give you the $100,000, because it sounds great at $100,000, but what if it's $50,000? I don't know if I'd be such in support of it. I'm just saying.
I suppose based on that language you just read, there is that possibility, but the likelihood is not great. So Clear Channel, one of the other things we liked about Clear Channel was their record in the region. I mean, they do have a good reputation among, cities. I mean, they currently have one in front of Kaiser on 99, in front of Cal Expo, and, our research had indicated that, they do a good business, and, they work with the communities in which they're in, and so, if there is a loss of revenue on their part, we would like to work with them because we do want to see them succeed. Their success is our success. And one of the reasons we didn't take, the $108,000 flat rate that they did offer, and we preferred to go with a % of gross revenue, is because we believe in this site and we believe in Galt as they do. So based on their due diligence for the site, their calculations on the trip generation along Highway 99, I don't think anybody sees traffic on Highway 99 getting less. So I just don't see that happening.
Okay, so, and I did check references of Clear Channel. I mean, I've received nothing but praise, so, that was great. And obviously, they're a substantial company, I've heard of them, but one more question was the city's entitled to 5% of the time, which I guess was calculated like per 4 weeks or something. So the math I came up with, which could be wrong, was like 3 minutes an hour or something like that. So, but it said that there was at the sole discretion of the tenant. So, I mean, just to clarify, does this mean that the tenant could say, well, you're going to get your 3 minutes? Like, do we get like, is it segregated out, or is
we're not going to get 4 a.m., right?
Okay, that's what I'm questioning.
There's language, there is
morning.
language in that contract, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but there is language in there that spreads that time out, that they can't put it at, the worst time of the day when they can't sell it. So it does have to be spread out.
Okay. And then my last question actually might be for Tom. So, Mr. Hagelin, if you could maybe elaborate on this. So, I mean, clearly, this is being put forth as a revenue generator for Parks and Recreation, which we clearly know that we could use. So, and this is why we would support this. But my concern is a couple things. One is that, 100,000 to Parks and Recreation, I guess I'll just get to the question. What I want to know is the $100,000 going to be subject to the 23% central service cost? Because if it is, then we're really looking at $77,000 that actually is going to hit the 06 fund. Is that correct?
Well, remember that your central service costs are an expense, not a revenue. And so the 23% is calculated as a part of the services. Think of general liability insurance. Think of HR to hire 100 and some odd Parks and Rec employees every year. Those are expense related. They aren't revenue related. But the revenue that goes into Parks and Recreation pays part of those expenses. As we know and as we'll see in a minute, doesn't pay what it used to pay and is in deficit and is thus causing the general fund to be in deficit. But again, those central service costs are real dollars. It's not anything other than a real George Washington being paid in support of the Parks and Rec Fund.
Okay, but what concerns me is that the billboard's being built by Clear Channel. They're paying for it. They maintain it. They pay the utilities on it. Basically, we do nothing but just collect a rent check from it. I would just be concerned that we're going to give $33,000 a year if that money is going to be subject, if we have, $1.5 million of Parks and Rec revenue is charged to 23% central service tax, then I would assume that $100,000 is now going to be part of that revenue and would be subject to the same 23%. So I'm concerned that Parks and Rec is not going to see the entire, in just being transparent.
Parks and Recreation will receipt in the full amount of the rental. Every dollar will be receipted in to the Parks and Rec Fund. Every dollar.
And then subject to whatever the Parks and Rec is subject to.
Expenses are subject to Parks and Rec.
So the answer is yes.
No, I think you're trying to make a connection that doesn't exist. The revenue will be fully receipted into Parks and Rec. So it's $100,000. If it's $100,000, it's $100,000 that goes into Parks and Rec. The cost allocation plan, which apportions out the costs associated with the general fund supporting Parks and Rec and wastewater and water and all of our other funds, is calculated on an annual basis. It's an expense, not a revenue.
Okay, so then the last question would be that there was a clause in the staff report. There was some verbiage in there, and it said that this additional revenue was going to supplement the 06 fund and create additional services for Parks and Recreation. But what kind of bothered me about that is, look, I'm not saying I don't support the billboard, but what bothered me about that sentence is that I don't feel that $100,000 really at this point is going to help create additional services. I mean, we're trying to maintain the services we have right now. We're going in the other direction at the moment. So I just think that was a little misleading. I think it should have been more like it would could work to sustain the programs we have. So I just want to throw it out there. I
want to respond to that, and I think that's a really good point, because when we route our staff reports for review, that was actually brought to my attention by another staff member, and I thought I had fixed that. So we had intended it to read more like you had stated. So good point.
Because, if it was additional, it would be a whole different subject if we were sitting here saying, well, we're going to earmark, all the billboard money to specific thing within the Parks and Rec to ensure that money sees the programs. Like, it doesn't just go into the kitty and then whatever. I understand that it goes in there and all the money's used for whatever, but like I said, it's just, we got Uncle General Fund over here already waiting to get paid back his money every year. So I'm feeling that $100,000 is just going to go to be making up that, and we're not going to really see an impact on it. I know it's helping. I get that. It's helping the budget, and that's why I do support it. But I just wanted to clarify these feelings that I have about this and those questions. So that's all the questions I have right now. Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tom.
Chris, I have only one question. That's, remember back there, I have a last meeting with a planning commission, and from the business, there's a potential impact to business located on Fairbase. You just explained to us. And there is no data support that claim, right? Can you a little bit go in a detail how you just a visual, or do you have any evidence or
Well, it was hard, well, that's the thing, is we couldn't find any evidence to support it. So, the evidence we looked at, we researched people who, talked to people who build the signs, did research, where signs are located. So we looked along the freeways, and we saw many instances of billboards by businesses. It was not an uncommon practice. In fact, I think it's a more common practice to place the billboards in a commercial area rather than in an area where there's no activity. You do see billboards sometimes in a wide open space with nothing around, but it's very rare. So it was hard for us to find data that doesn't exist. So we couldn't find it based on, and our consultant, Scott Sheldon, he's worked in the business for 20 plus years, and in his experience could not find any, or was aware of this topic even coming up in any of his processes for helping cities get billboards.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've directed staff to try to come up with more revenue streams and ideas, and what I really like is the 5% advertising, because we can throw the Galt market up there quite a bit, and that's right where it's at, and I would think that would draw a lot more people, or to remind them that we have the market, and so hopefully that'll bring some people to town for that, so.
We already advertise on their other two boards in front of Kaiser and off of Highway 50, so
Okay.
it might save us a little money now that we can advertise on ours.
Okay, very good. And then so I've noticed quite a few signs going up down 99 corridor, and if you're not looking at them when they change, you don't even realize they're a lighted sign. Because the lights are so unobtrusive now, and I'm sure the softball lights and the the thermometer, I can see from my backyard, and that's pretty far away. So I think these will be even less obtrusive, and I'm excited for that. Any other council members?
I have no questions. I think the questions that I kind of had were asked. I just want to say that I was one that originally opposed this a few months back, and certainly did some research. And part of my issue was the benefit to local business. I didn't think there was enough emphasis on that. And then also the issue with the how it would affect the homes. And after reading the CEQA document and the negative declaration and kind of going through that official document and then, public honestly saying, how could you turn down $100,000 a year? So that was one piece of it, but I will say I went into that not chasing the dollar, because when you chase the dollar sometimes you're blinded by other things. So I like I attended the Planning Commission and heard from the businesses there. I like the fact, and I don't think we mentioned it tonight, but there's an automatic dim, that's not what it's called, but it's automatic dim feature on it, so that when it becomes too bright, it dims down automatically.
I think I did mention it. I think I talk fast, so it probably went over too quick, but that is a real good point, in that it's 0.3, so it's automatic dimming software to limit the light levels to 0.3 foot candles at 250 feet. And again, the measurement of a foot candle is the light given out by the average candle at 1 foot.
Right.
So foot candle. So 0.3 of that is pretty low level.
Right. Yeah, and again, so all of those things kind of wrapped up, and I'd love to hear what the public has to say tonight, but absence any objection, I think I could support this tonight. So, thank you. And thank you for all the work you all did to put this together.
It was time consuming.
Campion?
I'll wait till after the public comment.
Okay. Is there any public comment since I opened the public hearing? Anybody want to say yes, yay, or no? Okay. Close it? All right, close the public hearing. Councilmember Campion?
I'm ready to make a motion to approve.
Go for it.
So moved. Staff's recommendation to approve the resolution approving the initial study negative declaration and the agreement between the City of Galt and Clear Channel Outdoor Advertising.
I'll second it. Roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Farmer?
Aye.
Councilmember Sandu?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Lamson?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Do I get some smiles from the Parks and Rec staff down there?
It's a big smile. I think what people, they may not look at it, we're going to be able to do stuff. Well, I won't have to cut $100,000 worth of stuff next year.
Great.
So I'm happy about that.
All right, thank you. Would council mind if we move the appointments from the to the city clerk, since I see a lot of our appointees are waiting in the audience, because I think the next discussion will be quite lengthy. Can I move that to right now? Is that all right with council? Yeah. All right, Tina?
All right, the Commission on Aging member appointment. This item is for Councilmember Lozano to appoint a community member to the Commission on Aging to fill a vacant position and remaining term ending December 2022. We received one application from Sherilyn Kahn. The application was sent to Councilmember Lozano for review, and I believe she is here if you have any questions.
I have no questions, and I would like to move to appoint Sherilyn Kahn.
Do we vote on that, or is it just appointment?
It's his appointment.
Just appointment, okay.
Okay. The next is for, item is for Councilmember Sandu to appoint a community member to the Galt Youth Commission to fill a vacant position and remaining term ending December 2022. We received two applications from, and I apologize, Harvinder Singh Uppal and Sherilyn Miller. Both applications were sent to Councilmember Sandu for his review, and I don't think they're here, but they did get sent to Councilmember Sandu for review.
Thank you for the both candidate as best qualified, but I like to appoint Harbinder Singh Uppal on this position.
Harvinder? All right. Thank you.
All right, Aging Commission, yay. All right, next up, Finance Department. Fee revision plan fiscal year 2019-20. I think I'd like to have the report before we have public comment. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay.
Mayor Lamson, I'll start, yep,
He's getting it.
as we get the PowerPoint up. Mayor Lamson, members of the council, this item is part of a continuing discussion that the city is having relative to its financial sustainability goals. As the council's aware, you worked through the summer on a very broad basis looking at the general fund, the Parks and Recreation Fund, our lighting landscaping funds, and the deficits that exist in each of those. And so you held a series of public study session meetings in July and August, and culminated in a decision that balanced our general fund budget for this fiscal year, and you took that action on September 3rd. At that time, we were talking about the fact that we would take, the financial sustainability plan would include very short-term, immediate decisions we could make. Those were your September 3rd determinations, as well as midterm issues that we needed to review, analyze, and bring back to this council, and some long-term items that we need to review, analyze, and bring back to this council. And so we are now in that midterm phase and want to review with you a series of fees. We've looked at the fees across all of the city departments, and we have two departments in particular that we want to discuss potential fee increases with you. Those exist in recreation and community development. This is all premised on a very real fact, an unavoidable fact, if not inconvenient, that our general fund is in deficit and is in deficit very significantly year over year, and that deficit condition cannot exist, we believe, beyond about fiscal year 2024. Similarly, our lighting landscape districts have also entered a deficit phase. We've taken some short-term measures to correct that, but the long-term looming lack of appropriate revenues sufficient to sustain costs of providing landscape maintenance to our parks and to our street areas is something that concerns us. A failure to, on our part, or an inability to replace this revenue or to come up with a solution to the continuing increase of expenses threatens our general fund ultimately down the line by 2024 with insolvency. Our problem ranges is between about 1.3 million to 1.5 million annually. And as we enter into the new year, January, February, March, and are putting together a new budget, these are problems that we'll have to solve in that new year with the new two-year budget. And ultimately, the goal, as articulated by the council, as recommended by the staff, is that our next budget be balanced. And that we, just like we balanced the current year by making over $1 million in cuts, we need to and should, for the ultimate health of the community, financial health of the city, but the ability to provide those most necessary services to our community, we should be operating with a balanced budget as opposed to a deficit budget. And so the threat to the general fund is in part predicated on the threat that the general fund receives from the Parks and Rec Fund. We've seen over 15 years, we've seen the loss of $1 million year over year in revenue. That is to say that in 2005, we were bringing in about $3.5 million of gross revenue. We only bring in about $2.5 million today. The other aspect of what is contributing to the fiscal problem in the Parks and Rec Fund is increasing costs. We've seen that most of our employees in Parks and Recreation are part-time employees, over 100. And we've seen that the increase in minimum wage has naturally affected us, much like it affects businesses everywhere. And when the part-time or when the minimum wage increases, your Social Security contribution increases, your other workers' compensation costs will increase. And so all of those things that support the Parks and Rec programs, the hiring of staff for those programs, is increasing, at least in part due to minimum wage. And this isn't an argument against minimum wage, it's just a fact that it's part of what contributes to the imbalance in this fund. Increases in landscape maintenance contracts over time have also significantly increased increased and caused the fund to be in deficit. And then finally, the general fund has been carrying that weight. And so as the Parks and Recreation Fund sinks into deficit year over year, the bills still have to be paid, and they have to be paid from somewhere. And so what we've been doing year over year is relying on savings in the general fund to cover that cost. Again, that cost has been anywhere from, in the last couple of years, from $1.2 million to just below $1.5 million in subsidy from the general fund to the Parks and Recreation Fund. And so to take a look at the Parks and Recreation Fund by segment, there are two primary segments that make up the fund. One is Parks and Recreation programming and operations itself, the department, if you will, and then it's one of its divisions, which is the market. And so we track revenues into the Parks and Recreation Fund and into the market separately. They're completely separated so that we know exactly how much money the market is bringing in and how much money the market is contributing after its own expenses over to Parks and Recreation in support of the programming, of the maintenance, of all it takes, or all the expenses that exist in Parks and Recreation. And so as we look at that, we see over in the total column that we bring in about between charges for services in Parks and Recreation and market revenue, and then some other things, park rental, renting the picnic areas and things like that. We bring in about 3.386, about $3.4 million. And then, but that's not sufficient to meet the expenses of Parks and Recreation. And so the general fund is contributing another $1.2 million. Again, the general fund doesn't have the $1.2 million to contribute except from its savings, and those savings are rapidly drawing down. The expenses, the expenditures you see in the total column represent expenditures from Parks and Recreation, the department, think of programming, the pool, landscape services, all of that, everything it takes, and they're listed there, as well as the expenses for market operations. Again, the market is primarily staffed by part-time employees, but it operates at very extended hours. Market isn't an 8 to 5 operation. It operates on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Less staff on Monday, but nonetheless, we have vendors coming in early on Monday, getting set up, doing the things there. We have a bit of staffing to cover that. But then primarily Tuesday and Wednesday, the market starts very early in the morning. I think probably somewhere around 5 a.m. if memory serves, 4 or 5, yeah, and runs all the way into through the cleanup of the market at the end of Wednesday. And so while it may only operate 2 hours or 2 days a week, it operates for many more hours than would be a typical workday, and thus the number of staff associated with that, as well as all the expenses. Think of all of the paper towels we go through and everything it takes to stock the restrooms and to keep them operational, as well as heat and lights and all the other expenditures associated with the market. So all of that, grand total, when you consider Parks and Rec, the department, the market division, again, about $4.6 million in expense. And I will point out that that $4.6 million does include central service costs that is calculated for Parks and Rec. Now, Parks and Rec has no way to pay that, but we calculate it nonetheless, and that is services provided by other funds to the Parks the Parks and Recreation Fund, Fund 6, that our cost allocation plan, which we calculate across all funds throughout the entirety of the city, is outlined there at about $900,000. That's about $238,000 for the market, about $661,000 for the department itself. So here's a look at our market revenues. This is a graph now, I think, etched well in the council's minds. It is something that the public has often had the chance to see, but we show it each time because it really tells the story of why our Parks and Recreation Department is in such a pickle is in such a pickle with respect to revenues and its deficit. As I said earlier, we were bringing in about $3.5 million in 2005. Today, we bring in about $2.5 million. That's $1 million loss to programming, to Parks and Recreation over that period, $1 million. So how, as we embark on this mission of fiscal sustainability, will it occur? How do we get to a point where our budgets are balanced? Well, we have to look at enhancing our long-term revenue sources, and we have to take a look at reducing services to the community by way of cuts. I personally don't believe that this city is in a position to be able to cut its way into financial solvency. I don't believe that that will ever happen. Without dramatic cuts and without, the wholesale elimination of non-core discretionary programming. And non-core discretionary programming are those things that aren't related to life safety. And even then, I think that there isn't enough there to cut. So, really, revenue enhancement is one of the areas we have to take a hard look at and realize that if the targeted amount of correction is $1.4 million, we have to figure out how to replace $1.4 million. And remember, $1 million of that 1.4 is directly related to the loss of revenue, the loss of 1 million George Washingtons coming into that market every year. So as we look at revenues and we take a look at our fees across the city, the first one up is Parks and Recreation, and your Parks and Recreation programs can be calculated to cover the direct cost of the programs. We can refer to those as direct cost or hard cost. Or the full cost of the activity, including both indirect and indirect, or, including both direct and indirect, or hard and soft costs. When we use the term hard and soft makes it sound like it really isn't a cost, but it is really a cost, and there's no way around that. We can not like the fact that a particular fund gets a indirect or soft cost attributed to it, but guess what? In the end, it all represents a deficit to the general fund if it isn't appropriately apportioned out and paid for by the underlying fund that's receiving services from the general fund. Either way, whether you calculate it in or you leave it out, we have a deficit. We have a deficit we need to solve before we run through all our savings and can, don't have cash flow to make payroll or to cover projects and things like that we would want to do. And that's what stares us in the face in 2024 unless we make some modifications. So there are ways to do all of that as we take a look at our fee structure across the city. Tonight we'll talk about Parks and Recreation. At the first meeting in December, we'll talk about community development fees. We can do fee studies and things like that we use with consulting firms. What we've done for purposes of Parks and Rec and for community development is we took the previous fee study and we've updated it as to current costs. And so we've kept the same methodology, the same calculation means, the same process, and we've updated those costs. Now, I think the last fee study was completed 4 or 5 years ago, and so you have that period of time in which we have now tried to update them and bring forward fees that represent a visual of both the hard cost as well as the hard and soft cost, or really the direct and indirect costs. And for that part of the presentation, I'll turn it over to our finance director.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm going to go through some of the financial numbers. These are in your staff report, but in this presentation, I'll give you a little more details. Presented tonight are 4 program categories recommended for fee increases. Not all of the recreation programs are going to be presented tonight. There are several that are covering their hard costs, and so they're not part of this presentation. So currently, this particular slide shows basketball, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to explain it. This schedule on the rows shows the kinds of costs that are attributable to each program. The columns are each segment of a program, basically an age group. The first top of this section is really those hard costs. So staffing costs, operating expenditures. There's a software program that is used by all of the recreation groups. It helps track all of the participants and schedules, and that it has a fee that is a 5% of the revenue. So this row will show what we're currently paying as we increase the revenues for any of these particular programs. That cost will go up. This particular schedule takes each one of those segments, first grade, second, third grade, each one of those columns, and totals up what those total costs through the hard costs are, along with a combined total. And then at the middle of this schedule shows additional costs. Those are the indirect costs being added on, and to come up with a full cost. At the very bottom is the participation rate. This is an average, generally a 3-year average, of what we anticipate participants to be in each one of these segments. Current basketball rates vary per grade level and range. They currently range from $70 a participant to $80 a participant. Industry practice is to group sports, so together, because some of the costs are shared. So basketball, they don't separate who has what basketballs or what kind of supplies. They're all used generally together. So although we can segment them out as best we can, really there are some inherent shared costs in here. So it's very common to group all of them together. The City of Galt has not done that in the past, but what we're presenting here this evening is that combination where we've combined everything. We're not charging a different rate for a different group of kids. They all average out. So the number on the far right, average rate, the 127, is what each participant would pay to cover just the hard costs, not any of the indirect, just hard costs. The way we've put these numbers together is really for Galt. So what are the costs to operate a program for Galt? We do have some information here about comparable rates, just to kind of get a sanity check on these numbers. But really, we're not trying to compare ourselves to other areas so much as cover our costs. So in this particular example for basketball, the average rate per participant would be 127 to cover the hard costs. The comparison rates, now, it's hard to do comparisons on some of these because a lot of the cities have nonprofits or subsidize from sales tax initiatives or whatever. But our comparative here is primarily the Elk Grove CSD, and they charge $135. Excuse me. The other number that's not shaded in here is what would it cost per participant to pay the full cost of the program, and that's at $163 per participant. Softball. Oh, excuse me. So we've got some details on the basketball. First grade basketball, currently it's at $70 per participant. The proposal is $127. The comparison is $135. We've also listed Lodi, which does a collaborative with a nonprofit. That nonprofit does a lot of fundraising activities for these programs for the city. So their rates, Lodi splits it between resident and non-residents. So those numbers are listed there.
When you say collaborative, what does that mean?
I defer to Mr. Sleeve.
City of Lodi works with the Bob's group, where they handle a lot of the recreation programs. They work with City of Lodi, kind of, they'll take the registrations, and the city will provide maintenance for the fields, scorekeepers and things like that. So they work together to provide these programs for the city of Lodi residents.
Great question.
And can I just add one more thing to that? Bob's also is the nonprofit that goes out and they will fundraise, get sponsorships to offset the costs of the programs too.
So listed here are the second, third grade, and the fourth grade. These are just examples. And then fifth, sixth grade, seventh, eighth. So as you can tell, some of these vary, but it kind of shows you the comparison. Like, it's currently $80 for the fifth, is that fifth, sixth, and it would go to $127 compared to $135. For softball, this is a little easier to read, but it shows same kind of pattern. Staffing costs for T-ball, instructional 6, instructional 7, 8, and on, combined totals. The current rates range from $65 to $100 per participant in softball. There are some cost reductions both in basketball and in softball that the department has instituted already. The rates for these programs, for some of the programs, are managed by, again, nonprofits. This calculation comes out to $100 per participant to cover those direct costs. And again, that's compared to a current range of $65 to $100. The full cost is $129 per participant in softball, and that's just based on numbers. The comparisons averaged 114, and it was primarily using the Lodi resident and CSD. We didn't use the non-resident because we didn't think it was really relevant to this comparison, but that non-resident, of course, is higher. And then the minis, minors, and majors comparisons exclude CSD and Stockton because they're managed by other nonprofits. The nonprofits, when they put in their full cost, they're generally higher than these numbers. Again, giving some details to some of these segments. We've listed here T-ball 65. The proposed rate would go to 100. Elk Grove is at 115. I'm sorry, CSD is 115. Elk Grove girls they don't offer it. Okay. And then, of course, the Lodi Bobs.
So what we did there is we added, CSD only offers up to that 6-year-old program. Then a local nonprofit comes in and takes over at that point. Kind of like what we do here for baseball with Galt Youth Baseball. We offer T-ball and instructional up to a certain point, then they come in and take over for the boys up or girls up to the age of, I believe, 14. So I just put them in that chart there just to show from the very beginning where they start taking over and their cost for them. So they are a nonprofit. CSD will drop off right after the 6-year-old in these charts.
Thank you. Going to the next page, the minis, minors, and majors are listed here. The majors is the only one that really doesn't have a fee increase, but because we're modeling an industry practice of combining all of them together to come up with a rate, we included them in this calculation. So that is basketball and softball. Two other programs that we took a look at were council asked that we bring back the adult softball. This is a program that was eliminated by council in September through those budget expenditure reductions. The previous rate was $425. The calculation of this program for full costs, which is traditional that they cover their full costs, is an average of $511. The comparable rate from Lodi, Stockton, CSD combination, an average, is $510, so we're right there. This program is sometimes run by other nonprofits in some areas. It doesn't always show that it's run by a city. So if this were reinstated, this program covering its full cost would be $511.
And may I add something at this point? We also contacted a third party to possibly run this program, hopefully at a rate that would be acceptable to our teams here in town. GSSA provided us a quote. They would modify the season to 7 games. The top 3 teams would make the team or the playoffs. There would be no scorekeeper, and they would charge $575 per season. We were able to do this by eliminating the scorekeeper. What we're going to do is we're going to still keep the 8 games regular season, but only the top 3 teams would make the playoffs, and we'd be able to provide that for $511 for full cost.
So you talk about bringing it back and then charging?
If it's the council's desire, yes.
Okay.
But those would be the modifications. The 511 would cover full cost without a scorekeeper. Home team would keep the score along with the official.
So when a nonprofit comes in and takes over a program like that, what kind of cost savings is that to you? Because I know they're still using the fields, we have to maintain the fields. What kind of a cost savings is that to the city?
Staff time.
Staff time?
Yes.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, and then the final program that we took a look at was the swim team. Currently, the rates for this is $160. When we calculate up just the hard costs, comes to $193. For full cost, $252. We have great participation in this program. The comparisons, when we average out Arden, Dixon, Sunrise, and Elk Grove, comparative is 314. This one's really hard to compare because there's quite a variety of other participation, I guess the fair way to say that.
And we can speak to that if you'd like. I'm going to turn this over to Monica Lopez, our recreation supervisor and our expert in swimming.
Okay, so some of the ways that the fees are different, if you're looking at like Arden Park, I believe they were charging $275, but that is what it's a nonprofit organization that's running it, and Arden Park is actually charging them for use of the facilities. Dixon and Sunrise are both Parks and Rec or part of the cities, but Sunrise is making them or charging them for use of the buildings or anytime they have meetings and stuff like that, so then they have to do extra fundraising. Dixon is just like us, it's a straight what they pay, they don't have to pay anything extra. And then Elko Piranhas is another nonprofit club that they're paying for use at whatever Elk Grove pool they're able to basically rent from.
So those are the 4 programs. I would entertain questions. We have before you council action for consideration in the approval of the fee revision. That would revise the 1920 budget, and then the full cost could be implemented in 2021 if the council chose to do that. So those are the items listed that we've just discussed. If we have any other questions.
I might like to see with the Little League, the ones that cost a little less, like the T-ball, because they don't get the refs and things. I might like to see theirs adjusted, and maybe the higher level that has to have 2 refs. Some of them have to have 2 refs? Maybe reflect the higher cost of that program. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks. you guys want to have public comment? Do you want to make a little comment?
I'm going to wait till after public comment
Okay.
for me to speak.
Anything else? Okay. First up, we have Ryan Montgomery. Then on deck will be Nicole Gregg, then Mary Mustaka, and then Janine DeBastiani Farron.
I'm going to move the mic for the sake of your eardrums. So, good evening. I wanted to speak about the fee increases being proposed for youth sports. The inequality issues this presents is off the charts. We are pricing out our youth. We are becoming the haves and the have-nots. Given that coaches like me work year after year for free and also ref the games, it is clear that someone is mismanaging the money involved in this. That's coming at the expense of the children in our community. I respectfully request that you all look at this with a careful eye for a solution that doesn't price out our kids and rob them of the opportunity of playing youth sports. Thank you.
I was going to ask him what sport he was coaching. Nicole?
Hello. Okay, so I wasn't planning this, so my notes are kind of all over the place.
Will you move the mic back towards you?
Yeah. Okay, so is that better? Okay, perfect. So there was a couple things that the council members said. One of them was, Rich Lozano, when you said when chasing the money, you lose sight of other things. And I think when that was regarding another situation, but I think it kind of applies to this as well. I mean, I've been in this town for 37 years, and I know for myself, growing up, I was involved in the sports. I was involved in softball every year, but I know for a fact that if the fees were what they are now, that would never have happened. With a single parent, that never would have happened. I think by increasing the cost of the programs, we're eliminating kids from being able to participate. I think those, like I said, single parents, those with multiple kids, even with two parents that are full-time working, you have a family of 4 or 5 kids, and that's not going to happen. I mean, you're looking at almost $200. It's like, and I'm talking about swim right now, almost $200. That's $1,000. That's a mortgage. I mean, you know, and granted, yes, we're getting 3 to 4 months of swim time for that $200. So when you look at the big picture, okay, you're getting, you know, but when you're looking at that also, and you're comparing it to some of these other programs, like in particular the Elk Grove Piranhas, you can't even compare it. That's apples and oranges. I mean, when you're looking at that, because, and I'm on the board for the Gators, but tonight I'm speaking as a parent, not as a board at all. And I love our coaches, and I know that we have one of them here, and I don't mean this by any disrespect, because this coach that I'm speaking of and some of the other coaches are not the things that I'm talking about. But I feel like in order to serve my kids right, I have to be honest. But I think that if we're paying more for these programs, then we need to have the quality that these other programs are having. And I think in some of our coaches, we do have that, but in some of the coaches, we do not. If I'm paying $200, I'm going to be ticked. If I look over and I see, like I have seen last year, a coach give instructions and then go sit down on the ground on her phone, that will work my nerve. And I can guarantee you, board member or not, that's not going to sit well at all. You know, it's like we're looking at, okay, we've had 300 swimmers in the past, maybe not quite there, but in the past we have had that, and we've been pretty close to it last year. So you're looking at last year, we made $48,000 through the program. Well, we didn't, but city did. So we increase that and say, okay, we charge the $193, and you're looking at doing times 300 swimmers, okay, it's a difference of $9,900. But are we cutting our nose off to spite our face? Because are we really going to get those 300 swimmers? Or are we going to take that ability away from some of those kids and end up with the same amount that we made last year? Because you think about it, and the difference of that $9,900 is only about 40, 50 swimmers. So these families that I know of have 4 or 5 kids in the program. It's not going to be an option. Well, potentially it could not be an option. You know, I mean, My daughter currently has to go outside of Galt for a fall program, swim program, because we can't afford to have a Galt program. You know, last year we had to outsource it to the high school because we couldn't afford the fees of the pool. And I understand from the business aspect, but from the community aspect, that's sad. You know, it really is, because the pool has to run no matter what. No matter if we're swimming there or not, chemicals have to be put in the pool. You can't let it's not going to turn green and get algae. So why, just because you have a program that's going to be in there, oh, good, we can have them absorb the cost rather than us paying for it, like we would have to pay for it no matter what. You know, sorry, like I said, my notes are all over the place because I wasn't exactly expecting to get up here, but so to the adult softball, I had a question. The $511 for that, is that a team or is that individuals?
Team.
Per team.
So then you figure if you have 10 people on a team, we're asking them to pay $51.10 for a season for 8 games. Okay, we've got the softball, girls softball. They play 6 to 8 games, maybe 9, whatever it is, and we're asking them to pay $100 for a kid. We're asking the parents to pay double of what an adult is paying. I don't see how that is fair or right. And I'm sorry, but I think it's completely ridiculous that we're having to ask them, or they are being asked to pay $100 for t-ball. Because I can guarantee you if that was the case, my kid would be in the backyard practicing. I had a lot more, but I just didn't have the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next up, is it Mary Mustaka? Am I saying that correctly? Everyone's looking around. Okay, Janine DiBastiani-Farron.
Well, hi. As Nicole, I was not planning on getting up here to speak. However, I do know there are so many more parents that want to be here tonight and want our voices heard. And I was running from Kaiser to practice to this, to that, and I just had to make it tonight and decided I would speak. I've lived here since '93. My husband's lived here all his life, 42 years. His parents are also lifelongers. So we've all seen quite a bit of change. We have a 19-year-old who started here playing softball when she was 5 years old, or 4 years old, excuse me, soccer when she was 5. We have a 13-year-old son who also plays basketball and soccer, and then we have a new one starting. She's 8 and plays soccer and softball. I can't imagine not having the sports for our kids and having to increase the fees to maybe, I don't know, push the programs out. I'm not quite sure. But increasing the fees it's already been done. I think as far as softball goes, it was last year the fee had already increased. It's already tough for some of the parents as it is. But it's even more difficult to justify it. Now, talking about softball, not only do my kids play, but my husband played, I played, we utilized the Galt complex. The fields are really not maintained very well. I know for a fact in '08 that dirt was donated, time was donated, those fields were made to look amazing, and then they fell apart again. The tarps are never used. There's flooding. I also help with the high school program, and we get a lot of, which I understand. We can't go on the rain. We can't know when the rain's going to come. But the fact that we have puddles here because they're not maintained or maybe covered like they should be. And I know somebody who worked for Parks and Rec at one time, and he said they're just so heavy. Well, they need to be covered and taken care of. So it's really hard to justify increasing those prices and then having missed games, missed practices. There's time. And you've got all these coaches that are volunteering their time as well. Again, T-ball, instructional, they don't even have umpires. There's no reason that should be that expensive. The pitching machines okay? My daughter played on the pitching machines last year. The pitching machines don't even work. They don't even pitch the ball. How are we supposed to teach our kids if we don't even have working equipment? Also, being put on veterans with a pitching machine with no plug. I mean, how do you play? How do you play with pitch machine and then get put there as opposed to the complex? I mean, there's so much that goes into it, so it's very hard to already afford it as it is, but then to be able to try to justify that as a parent. Basketball, same thing. I know there's only so many facilities that we can use, but some of those are dangerous. I mean, McCaffrey, we've got the kids tripping over, like, I don't know what they've done there or not, why they haven't been able to fix that, but during a game, when they have to play at McCaffrey, because some of the games are held over there, cracks in the floor, they'll trip over. So why increase these fees if we can't even take care of the facilities that we're using? Sorry. Basically, the whole point is, you know, we need activities for our youth. There's not a lot to do in Galt. The sports is imperative that we can keep that. If we raise those fees, there might, and it already has been declining. It's already been declining, fees have already raised, it's already been declining. If we raise them, they're going to decline some more. Oh, well, maybe they'll just take them out of town and we can get rid of all the sports here. No, it's hard enough for parents to get back from work to get them to somewhere here. They're not gonna go outside of town, and you can't compare, it's the same thing, you can't really compare, because if you take a look at some of the other facilities in outlying towns, they're better. I mean, so they have better upkeep. So basically, it's already hard enough for parents as it is. Increasing the price is gonna make it worse. If we push the sports out of Galt, I don't think they're gonna go to another city. More than likely, they won't, and there's gonna be more bored children around, more
I'm
getting into
sorry,
trouble.
Janine, your time's up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Did Mary appear? Okay, thought maybe she was in the back. All right, council.
Didn't we have somebody missing? Didn't we have somebody that signed up that didn't come? Or did
I called him twice.
I? Okay.
Paul?
Did somebody else hand up a thing, or no? Okay, I got everybody?
All right, I have a few questions to Armando. Armando, when we increased the fees last time,
We had brought forward to council some fees, some were approved, some were denied. Prior to that, it would have been the last fee increase would have been the prior year. So,
2018?
what's that? So, if you can ask specific sport, I can tell you which ones were approved and which ones weren't. Because I don't believe you guys approved the basketball. I don't believe you approved the T-ball.
On June 4th,
Yeah.
we approved some fees to be increased.
Yeah, but not all fees.
Okay. The other thing is, I might be, the first thing is youth baseball, right? We are intent to increase $127 from average $70, right? Around $60. We are there is in a report say 498 participants, right?
That's a 3-year average. That's
yeah,
a 3-year average.
We're going, I'm just reading the report. Yeah. If we're doing 127, and it can be hard cost $63,000. But everybody keep in mind, when we increase the fees, your participation can be low. And especially these kids. I'm talking about this program, our youth, our future. I do understand, I respect Tom, he did a good presentation. City is in the budget, right? We did make the previous decision. But I'm talking about to my personal thing, especially with the youth, that's our future. And whatever we make to do it, we need to help these kids. If the kids are not doing the gaming, if the parents, I'm not talking about the all parents, there is some parents, the same thing, one of the public comment, they said if you have 5 children, they're going to, we cannot afford it. And if your participant going down, you can end up with the same thing. And the same thing in the youth of softball. And to me, this increase, I know you guys comparison with the CSD, and also did the comparison with the Lodi. Lodi is very much charging the same thing what we're charging now. They are non-profit, but they running something. Non-profit never go in a negative. So I don't understand why the expense. And the other thing is, did ever we had tried to, instead of doing decrease in the fees, can we reduce any expense on that? So we be comparison like something we can do to help the kids. The adult softball, I believe is on the report say 511, but I believe Lodi charge 475.
They also do not participate in the GSSA fee for $35 per team to register.
That's a one-time fee, right?
Once a year.
And then same thing, El Grove, they charge $480.
They also, I believe they also, that does not include the 35. Our 511 will include that fee.
But I'm talking about, is that's the, the cost comparison. I like to, the city is in the budget crisis. I like to increase because no business, I do understand business cannot run if the expense is more than your revenue. But this thing is with the kids, so that's why I might have some few questions after that. I'm going to turn over to next my colleague.
Ronald, I have a question. On first grade basketball, first, second, third, fourth grade, how many participants per team?
It'll a maximum of 10 for the second through fourth. We have groups of 20 kids for the first grade program. It's more of an instructional program. What we do is we break them into 20 kids per session, and then after on the 5th through 8th week, we'll break them into 10 players per team.
And then on T-ball, 4, 5, then 6 instructional?
We typically have 10, depending on the coach. They'll take on more players than that, but anywhere between 10 and 13 is a general number.
Per team?
Per team.
In these numbers we're looking at, we're going from $70 a team to $127 per team, is that correct?
This is a per person. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That number is per person.
Then on, maybe I misunderstood something. So the $511 for adult softball is?
That is per team. That is the one that is per team. And when you get into our youth sports, the kids register, they pay their fees up front, and then what we do is, depending on the age group, we either assign them to a team or they try out for a team.
Okay.
Where in adult softball, you sign up a team, bring in your own players. There is no draft, there is no, here, we're putting you on this team. It's, you bring in your own players.
So on a per-person basis, for purposes of example, in the first grade basketball, $70 per person, correct?
Yes.
To $127 per person. And how many games do you play on something like that?
Typically 8, depending on how many teams we have. If we have 10, we'll play, if we have 10 teams, we'll play 9 games. That way everybody plays each other once. If I have, but typically it's an 8-game season.
Okay, so it's around $9 per game right now, and it would be proposed to about, I guess it'd be about.
And the other costs that are included in there, they have up to typically 2 practices per week. And in those practices, we're having to pay a staff member to be on site.
Right.
So there's additional costs there. We're paying a supervisor to make sure everything's taken care of. There are additional costs to that.
I'm just looking on it, the dollar cost per game would be about $8 a game to about $13 a game is what it looks like. And I don't think anybody up here wants to see an increase in fees to any of the sports programs, and I certainly agree with that. My concern is that if this council takes no action, the writing is on the wall. The city will get to a point where core services will take priority, which is going to be public safety, and you'll either be looking at dramatically, as the city manager said, dramatically higher fees, or you will see program elimination. And I think what these steps are doing are trying to avoid that, push it out, and at the same time maintain some level of programs for the community and for the youth. And I don't discount what has been said. I think, maybe we wouldn't have as great a participation, but we don't know. From the fee increases in the past, Armando, have we seen decreases in participation?
Not really. I mean, in age groups, it fluctuates, but overall, the number, no.
Well, I guess that a portion of that would be a function of the demographics in the community as well. I mean, some years you have we have fewer schools now, so you have fewer students.
About 8,000 students in town is what I calculated up. We have 2,400 high school students. Then we probably have about 8,000, maybe 7.
I don't like to see fees increased, but I don't like the alternative as to what we're going to be faced with. That's all I have to say right now.
Rich? Sean?
You want to go?
Yeah, actually, I will. So I have a couple of observations in looking over the staff report and actually talking with Armando over the last, year or so, and then a long meeting today with the city manager regarding recreation services. And I found it interesting, one of the things that was pointed out to me was the amount of staff costs for basketball. And I didn't realize that we are providing a staff member to facilities that are owned by the school district. So when youth basketball goes and plays at, name the school, we're sending a staff member over there. That just didn't even enter my mind as a possibility because it's not a world that I've ever lived in. And so I would encourage us to look at that as a practice and see what we can do in working with the school district and the MOU that we have with the school district about that. I think if we're bringing on youth sports volunteer coaches, it would seem to me that the schools could open the gym for them, a custodian potentially, and that adult, fully vetted, fingerprinted sports volunteer could manage a group of kids. Again, it's just a philosophical thing, and I want to reiterate, it's not something that I'm used to. So I was when I saw the amount of cost. I mean, when you look at staffing costs across all of these sports that we're talking about, it's like $100,000 a year, and so. And I didn't also realize that built into that cost is not just salary, but it's workers' comp insurance and our portion of Social Security. So I get that, and I know why those costs are there. And again, I would agree that our minimum wage is driving a little bit of this, but I think just operationally how we do business and going into the future is going to be important. And that leads me to the next point that I want to make. I don't have a lot of questions, I just have some points I want to make. and I've said it for, I don't know, 10 months, 11 months that I've been on this council, we need to look as an organization and as a community at doing business differently. Clearly, we're in a budget deficit that didn't happen overnight, and I believe that part of the issue moving forward is going to be partnering with not only other private companies, but nonprofits and also other government agencies like the school district, and in this case, working on an MOU that is cost neutral, but nonprofit organizations. I was just for full disclosure, I was the Elk Grove Girls Softball League board president for 5 years and on the board for almost 10. And when I heard that Galt didn't have a nonprofit organization run their softball league, I thought, well, how does that work? Because I know when we were doing softball stuff up in Elk Grove, the fields were in okay shape. I mean, they got mowed and that's about it once a week. But it was the organization that had work parties that went out and did all the maintenance. And so I thought, well, how does that happen in Galt? And then I come to learn that it doesn't. It's staff time. And so I'm a big believer in government can't do everything for everybody. And and that's why we have such a good fabric in our community with nonprofits here. If you look at other nonprofits, they flourish. So I want to go back to youth sports nonprofits and talk about some of the benefits, and that's sponsorships, the ability to get sponsorships for teams, increased fundraising, participant and family controlled. You have your own board that dictates fees. And if your fundraising drops, your fees go up. But I've seen it where when you increase your fundraising, you're able to provide opportunities for those that are less fortunate in the organization. And so I would strongly encourage, and I know I've said this a few times up here, someone in the community take the bull by the horns and look at organizing a nonprofit youth sports organization for swim, for basketball, for softball. I think there's some benefit there. And then you shift to a volunteer-driven organization rather than a city staff organization. I think there's some benefit to that as well. As I mentioned before, the city facilities seem to be maintained at a higher level. Now, are we going to fix that tonight? Absolutely not. I do want to hop on and talk about, I think Paul, Councilmember Sandu mentioned this. I think the entry level, or maybe it was Mayor Lamson, the entry level or the T-ball level in the different sports.
Baseball.
I don't know what that would be for basketball, probably first grade. I think that should be a lower fee than what everybody else pays. Now, I understand what you did. You just took the amount of participants, the soft costs, and divided it up. For the purposes of this exercise, I think that was important. But I think what we need to do, at least look at, is having that instructional or entry-level group pay a lesser rate. Now, since we were sitting up here, I pulled up Galt Youth Baseball, who is a nonprofit organization in our community, and they do a fine job. If you haven't been out to the parks, then you should go there. But I think their instructional folks, rookie 5- and 6-year-olds, are less than what everyone else is paying as well. So I think that's a good thing to do. I think it's what they're paying for, right, rather than what is equitable across the board. And so those are some of the things I want to talk about. Adult softball, it is what it is. It's either, we either want to continue it or not. And so I think that'll be a discussion in a few minutes. But the last thing I just want to mention is central service costs. I think we still need, and again, that's not a discussion for what we're doing tonight, but I think we still need to get a handle on what that looks like moving forward. And it's not just, again, Parks and Rec, but I think it's across the board how we do that and and I know that the city manager has been working on that recently, but I think that's important to point that out because, you know, costs are then passed on to parts of our organization that maybe if we did it a different way, wouldn't be so significant, and maybe we could cut some costs that way as well. So those are all the comments I have. I don't have a lot of questions. Most of my questions were answered today with Mr. Haglund, and but I appreciate the presentation, and look forward to some discussion.
Can I address a couple of things?
Sure.
One of the reasons that we do have a staff member at the school sites is that we have a great MOU currently with the elementary school and high school districts. There is no cost for us to use the facilities, but we have to actually make sure that the facility is not damaged in any way. We go in there, we have staff on site to make sure people don't just come in, they don't damage it, they don't vandalize it. If you don't have a staff member there, the coaches are great, but if there's that little window where some are leaving, some are coming, and that place is empty and somebody goes in there, we also document any, the pre-practices, the post-practices. So when they said, hey, you damaged that, no, we didn't. Here's the pictures, we can show you those kinds of things. So I think it's important. We've also made some changes to our programs for basketball where we're not scheduling all of the schools. We're trying to not schedule one or two of the schools to try and cut back on the costs and trying to have everybody work in the other schools that are open. Now, if we have to open it to make sure the kids get practices, we will. We've also cut back on the scorekeepers, the timers in basketball. So we had a scorekeeper and a timer. We now have cut the timer in the basketball program. So we're trying to cut our costs. We're looking at every angle to save money so these costs aren't as high. We understand, like you said, we're not back 10 years ago where we just, hey, we could afford to do this. We're trying to cut costs. We're trying to save the money.
And I would say this, and I believe that that's what you're trying to do. I would just say that rather than looking at it from only, and again, I know that's why we're here tonight is because of the cost issue, but rather than looking at it just from an ability to cut costs, look at it from ability of how we do business. And maybe we build in some of those other things that can be put into place so that at the end game, the costs are fewer. And so, again, I just found it amazing that we had a staff member at every elementary school or every school for basketball when we're also hiring on volunteer coaches. And so, again, my park and rec background and working in youth sports organizations, it just seemed odd to me. And I thought, well, maybe we could do it differently in the future. So.
Just to back Armando up about especially the Galt High and the Liberty gyms, that lobby, even if there's people in there, that lobby's so separate. We've had issues, I've been there where someone has snuck in and tagged. And if you have a coach, they may think this kid's coming in to play, or they may not know who their kids are. Well, the staff pretty much knows who's ever playing and who belongs there. So that's probably designed, the school district won't let you do it or even use it without somebody there.
They have not in the past.
Yeah.
And they're also there to call an ambulance, call a supervisor. We have other kids that aren't picked up by parents. That's happened in the past. So.
Vice Mayor?
Where do I begin? So, first, I want to start off on a good note. Thank you, Claire, for the presentation. I know Claire was asked to come up with cost savings measures. This is, she's a numbers girl. This is what finance does. They put together this proposal. Just based on a hunch, I know that these were not rates that were probably pushed by Parks and Recreation. They probably had a hand in doing some research and things like that. And I don't really want to dive into the comparisons with the other things. I think some of the comparisons were off, but it's just, that's neither here nor there. It's not even worth really talking about that. But I just have a couple questions for Armando, and then I want to say a few things. So this report, I assume, was prepared regarding the budget, but this was not, these proposed rates were not something that Parks and Recreation is recommending. This is just, you guys are just providing the hard costs.
These are not a recommendation. This was, council had directed staff to bring this information back. We had provided you our recommendation in June, or I believe it was in June. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do the tier process, how we've done in the past, where it's the 75, 80, 85 as you progress. There's this methodology where some groups seem to go to where they do the whole program as a whole and then say, and then disperse the cost over the all age groups. There isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way. It's just the way you decide you want to charge.
So remind me again, Armando, how long have you been in charge of Parks and Recreation Department?
5 years.
5 years. So, I mean, it's fair to say you have a pretty good understanding of the department. I mean, you probably have the best knowledge of the department about the programs and everything as most anybody in this room, I would imagine, correct?
Yes.
So I just want to ask you a straight question before I go on to some other things. Do you believe that these rates as proposed are sustainable? In your professional opinion?
It's a hard question because.
Actually, don't answer it, because I realize that that's kind of putting you on the spot, and I think that was wrong of me to do that. So don't answer. I'm going to move on to something else. I apologize for that. I shouldn't have done that. I want to thank, first of all, Tom was tasked as our interim city manager of doing something very important, and that was to get us on track with our budget. We asked him to help us as a council make decisions to correct bad financial decisions, or I could sugarcoat that a little bit and say maybe lack of foresight, or maybe decisions that were not maybe done maliciously, but altogether, regardless, they're bad. And so Tom, his job is to come to us and say, this is what I'm recommend doing. And so I personally never fault Tom when he comes to me with something that I may or may not agree with, because that's Tom's job. That's what his job is. He's tasked with managing the city, looking at money, and figure out what needs to be done. My job, however, as an elected official, is to look out for the people of this community. And that can mean doing what I think is best for the community in helping do things that are going to keep this city financially stable, but it also means listening to the people and acting on their behalf. For me, Parks and Recreation is like one of the most important things in Galt. If we didn't have Parks and Recreation, what would we do here? I don't think I know anybody that doesn't have a kid in sports or is tied to one of the sports programs here. I personally myself coached minis, majors, minors for several years. I know how important the programs are. I know that many of these participants are entry level, and I know what that means is that these are kids that probably would not otherwise be involved in sports, and some may never be in sports ever again. I had one girl, for example, I remember that I knew that this was the only time she was ever going to play sports. She wasn't really athletically inclined, but mom wanted to get her in sports because she knew it was a good thing to keep her on the, on the right track, and it was healthy for her to do that. And I would have Uncle Billy drop her off at the game, and then I'd have to wait after all the other players are gone. I would wait sometimes half an hour later so grandma could come pick her up, because mom's working fast food jobs. Single mom, working 2 jobs, can't even take kid to and from practice, but she would spend her, probably $80 paycheck for a week or whatever it was at the time, with minimum wage, to put her kids in a program because she knew how important that was to do that. So the point I make with that is that, it might not seem like a lot for $20 or $30 for some kids. It may not seem like a lot for most of you sitting up here, and I'm not singling out staff, but I mean, we have a lot of people that are sitting up on this dais, except for council, that make really good money, and $20 may not be good to them. I mean, it may not be a lot to them, but $20 is a lot of money to some folks. Like the lady that came up earlier, I mean, to put her kids through sports, it's a mortgage payment. So when we look at these budget cuts that we're asked to look at, I said this many times when we were making financial decisions and we made some of the cuts we've been making up to this point, I believe it's fair that there has to be a compromise. And what I mean by that is the community needs to give, and City Hall needs to give, and it needs to be fair. We all need to be contributing to fix this together. But as I think back about the compromises that have been made so far, what I tend to think of is the landscaping maintenance, the watering, the mowing. I tend to think of the fee increases that we voted for last time. We did vote for quite a few fee increases, including adult softball last time, which got raised up to $425. I also think of the discretionary funds, and although that was something that was deemed as the council members giving up money, that's all community money. It always went to the community. That was just taken right out of the hands of a lot of organizations that really counted on that money every year from council. And finally, I think about the position freezing. Now, it might seem to some that freezing positions in the city is a compromise with the city. But in actuality, by doing that, what you're doing is that's a trickle-down effect to the community. If you freeze a position in finance, it's one less person that can maybe work the counter and take a utility bill. If you freeze an officer position, where in this case we didn't think it would really affect much, but essentially these freezing of positions are not really compromising. So what I've seen is a lot of compromising from the community to this point. And I have seen very little compromise on City Hall. I mean, there has been a lot of financial decisions that have been terrible, including pay raises that were given out, and we've been told we can't be looking at those because it would just be, it's not enough and it's this and that. But yet we have our hand out again to the kids of the community and to the parents, asking them, hey, we messed up, previous council, previous staff, we messed up, we made bad financial decisions, so can you fix it? Here's my hand. When I need to put a roof on my house, I don't break it, I don't go to my daughter's piggy bank and bust it open to put a roof on my house. If I go buy a new car and I find out, I can't afford that car, I don't go and chop my kid's allowance. The point I'm trying to make is, my dad used to tell me something that was something I always remember, and he said, and I'm sorry I'm getting choked up because my dad just passed away, but he said, it's not how much you make, it's how much you spend. And so we need to be looking back at ourselves. I will not support any such fee increase that's going to go to the public, to the parents or the children, before we look deeper into our own selves at City Hall and find more cuts. I know there's more money to be cut. I found money last time. I found $30-some thousand last time that wouldn't even been missed in the budget. But the council decided to go a different direction, and we just overlooked that. That's 30,000. We're looking at 50 here. I know there is deeper numbers to be fought. And if we were sitting here tonight, and I believe deep down that we had dug for every cut that we could that was fair, and then we were asking for this, I would be in support of this. But I just can't sit up here and think about the 15 or 16 emails that I received today from parents begging me not to do this. They understand that these fees cost money, but it's petty compared to what we're looking at. And we got a budget to balance, I get that. But we need to be looking elsewhere. So for tonight, for me, I could sit here and say, let's increase that or not increase this. I agree with many things that our council members said. We should maybe, T-ball shouldn't be the same as minors and majors and all that kinds of stuff. I actually don't disagree with adult softball because I want the program to be saved, and if it takes $511 per team to save it, then I'll approve that. I'll do it. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's fair, but I'll do it because I want to save the program. I have so many people and families enjoy that program, and I'll do what I can to save it. But I will not support any other fee increase, and if I'm the only one who votes no tonight, then so be it. That's what I have to say.
What about the softball? Don't you think it's fair for the men's softball? Because
I would agree with that. I would support
when you
that.
said you didn't think it was fair, because I don't think it's fair that they pay half what the kids pay, but.
They don't. I want to save the program, and so I'm willing to support that.
Okay. All right. So I was going to ask Tom something, and now it's gone.
Well, if someone's looking for a motion, I will make a motion to approve the fees as submitted by staff.
Would anybody like to make an amendment on that motion for the Little League fees to be different? And is softball in there already?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can I make a motion too?
Like amendment?
No, you have to wait for a second. Is there a
Okay.
second for Mr. Campion's motion? If not, then someone can make another motion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the increase for the adult softball program in order to bring the program back at the cost that's suggested here at $511. But I'd like to forego none of the other fee increases that have been proposed on any of the other sports tonight.
Do we have a second for that one?
I will do a second.
So do we amend, if someone wants to do an amendment, do we amend that or just vote on
No,
it?
it's just, that's a motion and a
Motion and a
second.
second.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Sandu,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
No.
Councilmember Lozano,
No.
Mayor Lamson.
No. So we need to get, I think we need to get a motion with a little compromise in it.
Here's what I would propose. I would propose a step in to increase in fees. And what I mean by that is, first of all, the entry level that I spoke about before, the first graders in basketball, t-ball, and I think.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. For first grade basketball.
Yeah.
And then they had first grade, let's see.
I would propose that those fees, so for t-ball or softball, be $75, and then the balance of the increase be spread amongst the other groups.
Would you want to make majors more?
Right. So then they would be 100 each, 6 to majors. And then first grade boys, the same. The same cost for that, and then the balance 127 for the other groups. And I would recommend that the increase that staff recommended for the January 1st be 50% of what was proposed. Does that make sense?
Total cost.
Total cost. And that we then do the balance of that next January 1st of 2021.
Do we have scheduled fee increases already grandfathered in?
No, I'm talking about what we're doing here
Okay.
tonight only.
Okay.
So,
Can I get a little bit of clarity? I'm sorry.
sure.
So T-ball is currently 65,
He's proposing 75.
and
Claire.
you're proposing
I
75?
don't have,
So I'm-
I don't
Correct.
have $65 in my packet here.
That's, I think, the current cost of T-ball right now. And so.
Right, proof fee.
Under the proposal, it would go to
100.
$100. And
Proposal on the floor
70
is 75.
75 is what I'm proposing for January 1st of 2020.
And then first basketball,
I'm sorry, what page is T-ball
It's
on?
the staff report appendix, or attachment A.
Oh, staff report. This one.
and then what was the value on first grade basketball?
The same,
75,
75.
okay, from
And then the
70 to
balance
75.
would be the recommended revision.
And then essentially leave all the others at what is proposed, Which means there's
Correct.
basically a subsidy to those two programs.
So let's,
I'm
but let's take a break here. That's what I'm proposing. But 50% of that increase of whatever that is from now to what I proposed be effective January 1st of this year. The balance of that effective January 1st of next year.
That was going to be my next question. The 50% is on hard costs or hard costs?
The proposed
And-
number,
Which proposed number? I'm sorry.
the one that I just spoke of.
He's proposing just the hard costs,
Got it.
$100.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And then the other 50% to get to the full hard costs in 2021.
January 1st of 2021. I think that will, here's why I say that. If not this, then what? And I have, I don't want anything to go away, but I think by stepping into this allows us to formulate community interest in nonprofits, and I think it would also stimulate some interest in the community to put together an organization, nonprofit or otherwise, that would help raise money to offset costs for folks. At the end of the day, I think that children and families should come first. But I also don't want children and families to have nothing in 2 years because we haven't done anything today. And trust me, I struggled with fee increases in nonprofit organizations and in my former organization in which I was a board member in a Parks and Recreation organization. And it's tough. It really is. But I'll tell you, it will be tougher if we don't do something now. And I know it's $52,122. It was the increase would be projected for Parks and Rec. But next month we're going to be talking about community development, and again, I'm not a fee-raising kind of guy. It's not what I'm interested in, and I've said that over and over. And but we're in dire straits, and if we need to get this turned around, so that's what I would propose, and I would look for support from our council.
Can I get a point of clarification on the Gator swim team? That I don't believe you mentioned that.
50% of the increase. So 50% of the proposed increases are going to go into effect on January 1, 2020. The last half will go into effect on January 1, 2021. The only other modification is that T-ball
And basketball.
and basketball first graders is going to 75.
Okay.
And so for those fees that I've identified a hard cost recovery, that would be effective in 1/1/21?
Correct.
Okay. Was that a motion?
I think it was the motion.
That was a motion.
Is there a second? Okay, any more discussion?
I just want to make a quick comment about what Rich said. Just to make a point, though, it's easy to talk about partnerships with nonprofits and this and that, like other cities are doing, but, we're not Lodi, we're not Elk Grove. We don't have the resources they have. You know how difficult it is to get sponsorships in this town from businesses? I mean, they're still reeling from a bad garbage contract, and now we want to go out there and ask them to finance sports programs. I mean, it sounds good, but it's a lot more difficult than I think people realize to do that. I mean, I speak to people at Galt Youth Baseball, and they tell me it's getting more difficult to find people that'll help with the program, and I don't think it's going to get better. So we can't just think that that's the golden solution here.
I need to respond to that. I don't think that's the only solution. I think it's a good way to do business. Hey, listen, again, I just go back to my experience because that's a lot of what we have to work with here. we had 70 teams in a softball league, and 30% of the sponsorships were from out of the area. There were parents who worked for organizations or companies that wanted to support their employee. HP used to give us $3,500 a year from their employees, and the volunteer work, they would pay them an hourly rate. So I mean, there's different ways to do it. Again, I'm not saying this is a silver bullet, but I certainly think that we've been doing business a certain way for so long here that we're here and talking about reduction in budget. Sean, I agree. It's harder and harder to get money. But on the other hand, if we don't look at it and we don't examine it, we're going to be where we're at today. And so, again, I think if staff would have had an idea of where to find $52,000 in the Parks and Rec budget, we wouldn't be talking about fee increases. And that's just a thought. But so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
You know, what's kind of encouraging to me is that we do have the nonprofits in this town have a really strong coalition, and it's gotten stronger. And another concern I have is, like, we only have 29 girls that played fourth grade basketball, and we have 8,000 students or kids in this town, and we only had, some of the numbers are really low, 47 on some teams, and not enough to make a lot of teams. So I'm hoping if the nonprofits get involved, because the nonprofits are the heart of our city, they're our community members, that they will get the word out and get more kids to sign up. So I think that partnership could even increase the attendance in a lot of these, so. I think that's- Ready? Roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Farmer,
Could you clarify the motion, please? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. It's kind of long.
Okay, it was the one you made, right?
Yeah.
so I may need some clarification too. You want the T-ball and basketball to increase at $75,
First graders only.
first graders only, and then the remaining
Recommendations.
will be increased as proposed at 50% effective January 2021, and the remaining 50% to increase as proposed January of 2021.
So we've
2020.
20.
And then.
So we basically cut the fee increases in half, and maybe we can work with the community and nonprofits not to have to do it again in 2021?
Well, they'll go into effect in 2021. That's as I understand it. So
Right.
it's all going into effect based on this action, and if in the meantime,
And do we want to articulate the adult program?
Yeah, I would like to bring back adult softball at $500.
511?
I'm sorry, 511
Give us
per team.
$500.
And that would be effective January 1, 2020?
Yeah, this January.
January 2020.
We can watch the video, too.
Okay. And Campion seconded. Are we ready? Vice Mayor Farmer,
No.
Councilmember Sandu,
Yes.
Councilmember Campion,
Yes.
Councilmember Lozano,
Yes.
Mayor Lamson.
Yes, motion passes 4-1. Are there any comments by staff? Mr. Rice?
None tonight.
Okay. Mr. Selling?
None tonight, thanks.
Any more?
Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this matter. We'll be bringing additional items forward that you've asked us to bring forward, and I appreciate the time and energy on it.
Thank you. Ms. Narlock?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Do you want to make them
This is,
talk?
Nicole Brossman, she's our sports coordinator.
Welcome, Nicole.
I'm sorry, recreation coordinator.
Oh, Recreation. Welcome, Nicole.
You know Monica Lopez, she's our recreation
You guys want to,
supervisor.
you have any comments?
No. Do it, just do it.
I think it was an eye-opener for her today. I want to thank them both to help get a lot of information together and to be prepared to answer questions for you. They both did a great job. I'd like to thank Galt FC. A couple of their teams came out and assisted our Parks maintenance staff crew in spreading bark throughout our planters at Walker Park. So I just wanted to acknowledge them for them stepping up and helping us in that endeavor. So.
FC's the
Football, it stands for Football Club, which means soccer everywhere else in the world.
Okay. Stockman, you've been awfully quiet tonight.
The only comment I want to make today is that El Dorado County Sheriff Deputy Brian Ishmael was laid to rest today. Many of us attended the service, and I hope in my career that's the last time I have to attend a service.
What are you promoting Saturday?
We do actually have a fundraiser this Saturday. Thank you for buying your ticket, Mayor Lamson. It's to help raise money for our CAPS and our canine program. So Valerie Heilman is taking the lead on it, and Mike Little is her sidekick, and they have just done an absolutely amazing job organizing this event. And so they both are very, very excited, and I think it's going to be a great event. So it'll be at the Littleton Center on Saturday.
Okay, we'll see you there. City Manager Haglund?
So we have a bit of dilemma, and this is an item I'm just looking for a bit of direction from the council quickly on whether or not to bring something back. But as you know and heard earlier this evening, we would normally be, or planning is underway as we speak for the Winter Bird Festival, but we lost a major sponsor. And so there, as we see it now, there is not a way to hold the Winter Bird Festival and have expenses equal revenues, or revenues equal expenses, I guess is the way to state that. And so the question is whether or not we proceed. What would the deficit be, Armando?
Anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000.
Yeah, or whether we bring something back for the council's consideration on whether or not to forego that festival this year.
We should bring it back. I think the chamber could still hold their fun event the night before, but we'll discuss that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that back.
That okay? All right, very good. We'll bring it back at your next meeting.
Ms. Saprell, our attorney for the night? All right. Councilmember Campion, any fun things you did this week?
I just have a couple of things, that have been kind of on my mind for a while. But I first want to plug the event Saturday. If you have a raffle basket or you want to donate a raffle basket, take it to Valerie over at the police department. She's more than happy to take them. They'll use them for, obviously, raffle and to raise money. So in addition to buying a ticket, going and participating, please, if you have a raffle basket, that would be awesome. Two things. The Character Coalition comes to us every couple of months or once a month or something like that. Is there a way we could just put that on the agenda rather than having the Character Coalition come up during public comment? I just think it's an important thing for the community, and I think we're recognizing somebody. I think it should be part of our formal agenda rather than Barbara coming in at a public comment. It would just, and again, I look to the rest of the council for a direction, but it just would seem a little bit more appropriate to be on an agenda somewhere rather than in the public comment.
So I've been working with Barbara on that, and we'll have an item, again, at your next meeting. I sent her we've talked about it, and part of the dynamic, quite candidly, is how it is a group it gains access to just be able to be on the agenda and make a presentation. Because there may be groups that the council doesn't agree with or doesn't feel fits the character of the community or lives up to the ideals that the council might otherwise want to advance through at least your service on this council. And so in order to provide for a mechanism that is specifically tailored and defined that would provide for that end to be met, it really should be a group that the council somehow associates with and recognizes. And so it's more than just, yeah, put them on the agenda. And so as I have indicated, I've been working with Barbara she came in and asked me about that within the last probably 6 weeks or so, or 8 weeks, and we talked about it, and I conferred with Kimberly Hood, our city attorney, on that, and Kimberly essentially agreed with a thought that I had on how to approach it. So there'll be a staff report and a resolution at your next meeting for the council to consider.
Excellent, thank you. And then just one last thing. I know when I was on the Cosumnes Community Service District Board, we would meet periodically with the city and the fire chief, and we haven't done that this year. And so I would propose that we try to reach out and have a meeting just to touch base and see.
Again, we just to respond to that briefly, we had that scheduled, but we canceled it because the council met that day instead to meet with our executive recruiter for the city manager recruitment, and so I think that is either has been or is being rescheduled.
And then next week with 2 days of all that stuff, so.
And then the last thing I have, and I swear I'll be done, is really, and I may be speaking out of turn here, so tell me if I am. We really want to encourage the community to come out next Tuesday night. Do you want to take that?
No, you can. You're doing great.
Next Tuesday night to meet candidates that are applying for our new city manager position. There will be a reception at the Littleton Center.
Shibuya.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. And so come out, meet with them. There'll be comment cards where you can leave your comments on the folks that you speak to. This has been a process, and as Sean and I originally started kind of as subcommittee, but we really, really want community input. We really want folks to come out and weigh in on this decision that we have to make as a group here. And so please come out 6 o'clock, Shibuya Center on November 12th, which is after the holiday. So put it in your calendar because you'll forget.
After the Veterans holiday.
After the Veterans.
You're right. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I should have said that, and I appreciate you saving that. So.
I'd like to thank all the public speakers that came tonight. It's not easy to get up here and speak and to have all your thoughts, and I'm sure when you're done, you always wish you would have, I meant to say that, but anyway. And I also want to thank the Chamber for hosting a informational exploratory meeting about the market master plan, and for hosting that and managing that. That was, really appreciate you guys doing that. We actually had quite a good turnout. So, yeah, it was very good, so.
Nothing to add.
The last couple of weeks, I attended a Galt Youth Commissioner meeting, Commission on Aging, Measure our Oversight Committee. Thank you for the committee for their commitments, their time, and their delegation. And I also attended last night Galt Market Master Plan. There was a lot of questions from the public, and we listened to them. Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.